What's imperfect about you?
I'm tempted to say everything. I can't think of anything about me that's perfect.
So, as the result of becoming a rabbi, you had to have total faith in God, right?
No.
Do you sin?
Yeah, oh sure. Who doesn't?
Is it true that you perform so-called same-sex weddings?
I do indeed.
Really?
Proudly.
Welcome to another interesting installment of Culture War. My name is Roland. I remain your host. Today is going to be very interesting, a very interesting debate between Jesse Lee Peterson and a popular rabbi named David Wolpe. It's very interesting. So many topics were covered today, from faith to homosexuality to racism. So let's jump right straight into the video.
So, as the result of becoming a rabbi, you had to have total faith in God, right?
No.
Oh, you don't have to have faith in God.
No, I did. You said total.
Yeah, total.
I don't know. I'm not
faith, but
sure.
not total.
I'm not sure what total faith in God would mean.
Oh, okay.
I would say that it's not. The reason I said it the way I did is, you can have doubts, you can struggle with it, you can wonder, and still be a rabbi.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
But not totally.
No. Well, it depends again what totally means. If you say to me, do I ever have doubts or struggle? Yes, I have both.
Yeah, total means no doubt.
No, I don't. I don't think that the best way to believe in God is to have no doubt.
Really?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Because I think that any faith, when it struggles, becomes stronger and should have a dark side as well as a bright side.
Even after your faith is now in God?
Right, even after, yes.
Wow.
I don't think this rabbi's comment makes any sense. How can you claim to have faith in someone, have doubt at the same time? Have complete faith in God. You're supposed to have complete, absolute faith in God, complete trust in God, not just partial trust. So I question his faith. I question his entire faith, in God. So let's continue. That's just my opinion anyway.
And are you able, without being too personal, are you able to tell us how it's possible for a rabbi to end a divorce?
Well, Jewish law permits divorce.
Oh, it does?
Oh, yeah.
Does it have to be a cause for it? I mean, like someone have to cheat or?
Not necessarily, no. Not in Jewish law. In Jewish law, if you decide to get divorced, you can get divorced.
But the law of God?
It's based on the Bible. No, it's based on the Old Testament. It's in Deuteronomy. If a man, what we call the Hebrew Bible, but you call the Old Testament.
Right.
If a man writes his wife for writ of divorce, it's right there in the Bible.
So did you just wake up one day and realize, you know what, I'm tired of this one?
No, not at all. It was a long evolution and an agreement between the two of us.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Will you ever marry again?
Don't know. We'll see.
Would you like to marry again?
We'll see.
Is there a right and a wrong? Is there good and evil?
If you're asking me, sure,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And is there an objective morality?
I believe there is, although I believe that our access to it is sometimes more complicated than people think.
Define objective morality. What does that mean?
It's something that comes from God. It's something, therefore, certain things are right and certain things are wrong. But in my experience, when people argue about morality, they generally aren't arguing about right and wrong. They're generally arguing about two rights and two wrongs. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're arguing about whether to go to war.
Right.
It's not that one person makes an argument that, yeah, it's good to kill innocent people, and the other person makes an argument, no, it's bad to kill innocent people.
Right.
Generally, it's an argument of, well, we would go to war for this reason, this reason, and this reason, and therefore I think it's right. And the other person says, but we shouldn't for this reason, and this reason. And they both have viable reasons. It's two rights usually, but one favors one kind of right and one favors another. So let's say that someone decides that they want to steal bread for their starving family.
Right.
It's either right or wrong, but you can understand that either side that you argue it, you're arguing two different rights. And so objective morality, I think, is tougher than most people think it is, just like quoting the Bible to support your position is tougher than most people think, because the Bible's got a lot of verses.
And so if I say it's wrong to steal food to feed your family,
Right.
because you could just ask for it, and most likely you're going to get it, and you could say, well, it's right because the person was hungry or his family was hungry, so it is right. That's objective morality?
Well, no, I would say if the person could ask for it, obviously, we would all agree they should ask for it.
Right.
But if
Oh,
they
I see.
didn't think they could, then you would have a much tougher argument.
Is it true that you perform so-called same-sex weddings?
I do indeed.
Really?
Proudly.
Did he just say proudly? Don't you see there's a double standard here that in the scriptures, the Torah, which he follows, that the Lord permits people to divorce, right? Now, in that same Torah, it says that God is against or does not approve of same-sex lifestyle. But here we have the rabbi saying he actually oversees ceremonies, same-sex marriage ceremonies. Is that not double standard? It is. So that's why I said earlier, I doubt if his faith and his belief in God. Anyway, let's continue.
So at the end of the ceremony, do you say to the congregation or the visitors, I present to you husband and wife?
No, husband and husband, or wife and wife.
And when you say that, it makes sense to you? It sounds correct?
Yeah.
You don't feel or sense that there's anything wrong with this?
Let me tell you something. The last same-sex marriage I did with two men.
Right.
In the middle of it, they said they wanted to say vows. I said, of course. One said vow. The other one said, I want to tell you when I decided to marry you. He said, maybe I shouldn't say it here, but I'm going to. He said, it was one night, you fell asleep as you always do, right away. And I looked at you and I began to cry because I realized I didn't want to exist in this world without you. So I woke you up and I said to you, promise me that I'll die before you because I can't stand being in this world without you. And you said, I promise, and went right back to sleep. By the time he was done, both the men and women in that congregation at that wedding were crying. It was one of the most beautiful expressions of love, not male on male love, not male on female love, just love I have ever seen.
But when I hear that coming from two men, that doesn't make me cry. It sounds
Okay.
just emotional
All right.
stuff that people make up in their fallen state.
Okay. You're welcome to think what you want. I'm not here to convince you otherwise.
Right.
But
And-
as far as I'm concerned, I've never been at a wedding that was more romantic than that one.
So, even though you have accepted it, is it normal? You see it as a norm?
What do you mean by a norm?
Like
Tell me what that means.
heterosexual men and women together is a
Do I
norm.
see it equal?
As a norm. Men and women together is a norm.
It clearly is a norm in our
You don't question
society.
that at all,
It
right?
clearly is in
but
our
when
society,
you see two
yes.
men together
Yeah.
as man and woman, or two women as man and woman, you don't see it. There's
I see
nothing
it.
about you that says, all right, I'll go on and accept this, but there's something that just doesn't seem right.
Am I unused to it? Yes, I am. I am as unused to it as people used to be unused to race mixing. But they got used to it because they realized it was right.
What is love?
A physical, emotional, spiritual kinship with another person that transcends, I would say, to some extent, our normal human state.
When you first met your wife and married her, did you love her?
Absolutely.
And did that love fade away after a
No,
while?
I still love her.
But it wasn't strong enough
It changed.
to.
No,
so
it changed.
Was it an emotional love in a fallen state that comes and goes?
I understand that fallen state is something that you use as I don't know what that means by a fallen state. That's not a term that I would normally use.
And fallen away from God.
No, I don't think that God had anything to do.
I've noticed that love is not hating. When you don't have hate, you have love.
I don't hate this table, but I don't love it.
But you don't hate it. You do love it.
No, I don't.
Let me tell you why you love it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have hate. You don't have a feeling for it. If you had
So
hate,
then I don't love it.
If you had hate, you have a feeling for the
Right.
table, right?
Right.
You would like be, oh, it's so beautiful. Look at it, just so gold, civil. You'd be touching it, right? But because you don't hate it, you love it. And love is not a feeling. It's not a thought. It's nothing that you can taste or touch.
What do you think it is?
It is a way of life. It's a way of living without judging a situation based on what you think
I
about
agree.
it.
I certainly agree with you that love is enacted, is an enacted emotion. You have to act lovingly to truly love. Yes.
Well, you say what now? You have to.
What I
act-
mean is when a woman comes to me and she says, "My husband beats me up, but he loves me," I say, "No, he doesn't."
Right.
You've got to act lovingly to love.
Also, real love doesn't require you loving me at all.
Right.
It requires me loving you.
Yes.
love my enemies.
So
And so all this other love that you talk about with these homosexuals and men and women who are breaking up once that love passed, that's ego love in the fallen state.
why is it
And
ego
that love
love?
is not,
Why is it
that
ego love?
does not
Why
last.
is it ego love when two men love each other? What if
Because-
they love each other their whole lives?
Because it's based on how they feel. It's an emotional love in
As
a
opposed
fallen
to what?
state.
As opposed to what?
opposed to loving a person not based on anything.
How do you know that they don't love each other based on anything just as much as a man and a woman do?
Because men and women, when they first come together, even the love that draws them together is ego love.
Okay.
That's why it doesn't last. And so when that
But what
love,
about when it does last?
it doesn't. When that love
Ever.
fade away, most people abandon each other. But
I totally agree with Jesse 1000% on this one. Love can fade after the initial period when you start a relationship. It's usually very fun, very loving. The feelings are all over the place and all that. But after some time, monotony sets in, and when monotony begin to trickle in, you start to ask yourself, am I sure I'm the right with the right person? Am I sure he's the one for me? Am I sure she's the one for me? I'm no longer happy. I'm not satisfied. I think that the grass is greener on the other side. Those kind of thoughts start to trickle in. But you see, that's a deception there. The truth is that love is not about emotion. True love, actually, is not about emotions. True love is about decision and a choice to keep loving that person without expecting anything in return. After a while, you see that if you persist with that relationship, you find out that the grass is not greener on the other side, and that initial decision that you made to be with that wonderful person was the right one. So I don't know if you understand, but that's my opinion. So let's continue with the interview.
what they're supposed to do is stay together so they can develop the true love for one another.
Okay, so let's say
And
that's
the
true.
love that
Let's
carries
say that
you
that's
until death
let's
do
say
you
that's
part.
true. Why can't two men be that way?
Because it's not ordained by God that two men be that way.
Then why did God make them that way?
He did not make them that way. It happened
but
due
if
to a spiritual trauma, and that
At
trauma.
what age can you have a spiritual trauma?
You can have it at birth. You can also have it in the mother's womb if she's angry at the father or the husband of the baby, because when she's angry like that, she traumatized the kid. That spirit is passed on to the children.
My sense
and
is
then they become like.
okay. I want to tell you how I hear this, although it's very different from the way you do.
Right.
I understand you're translating your discomfort into their trauma.
I'm not
And what I'm saying to you is, you may be uncomfortable with same-sex marriage, but they don't feel traumatized. Instead, they feel like they're in love.
I'm totally not uncomfortable around it.
Really?
I counsel homosexuals all the
That
time.
has nothing to do with whether you're uncomfortable about it.
And-
You just asked me, aren't you normal? Don't you see it's unusual? What I was getting from you was that you feel not comfortable with it.
No, you're reading the wrong thing.
Okay.
Is there a norm and an abnorm?
In what?
Anything,
In some things, sure.
but not in
It's less common, but that doesn't make it abnormal.
racism.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that Black Americans are suffering due to racism or the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character?
My answer is yes,
Yes, what?
both.
What is racism? How are they suffering due to racism?
I think that it is certainly harder in many neighborhoods in America to be a black person than it is to be a white person in all sorts of ways. If you asked almost anyone at birth, you're going to be born into America, you want to be successful, you want to be black or white? You tell me.
I want to be black.
Yeah, you think you have a better chance of being successful if you're black?
I'm doing quite well as
I'm
a
not
black
talking
man.
about you. I'm saying one. If you don't know what your circumstances are going to be, which do you think is a better predictor?
If I didn't know, I wouldn't be able to decide either way. Because I would, if I don't
Right.
know what it's like
No,
to be in the
I'm
white
asking.
world.
I'm asking you to estimate the odds. Is there enough either overt or subtle racism to make it more difficult to be a black man, especially man, growing up in America than a white man? I think yes.
No.
Okay.
Why do you think it's difficult for the person to be born into the black race than it is the white race? What is
Because-
causing the problem in the black community?
Well, I told you. I think both. I think both things are true. I think
Okay,
the
so-
breakdown of the family is a huge factor. No
So let me
question
ask
about
you
it.
this. If black men
Yes.
and black women
Yes.
were to love God with all their heart, soul, and might, along with nothing else, get married, and by example raise their children,
Right.
if they provided opportunities by creating businesses in their own communities.
And fathers
Make
were
sure
present.
that the communities are safe, respect one another, treat others
Yes.
the way you would like to be treated. Would they be having the same problem with the so-called racism?
They would still. I think there would still be that problem, but it would certainly be less, and the black community would be doing much better than it is
So
now.
is it possible that it has nothing to do with racism at all, but the
No,
destruction of the
it is
past?
not possible. And if you think it's possible, then you haven't spent enough time listening to white people talk about black people. Because if you did, you would hear that there are still racist undercurrents in part of the white community that actually make it difficult. In the same way, by the way, that if you talk to non-Jews, you hear something about the Jewish community. But the biggest difference is black people are much more immediately identifiable, and therefore racism has a trigger that is more instant than other kinds of prejudice.
I do want to tell you that I don't know what you have heard from white people, but white people do not hate black people. They are not discriminating based on color. White people are not the problem of black people at all.
Okay, those are two different statements. When
They
you
are
make a
not
blanket
racist against
when you
black-
make a blanket statement like white people don't discriminate against black
They are
people, or
not
don't
racist
dislike.
against them.
Okay,
They may discriminate. Do you discriminate?
no,
You never discriminate.
I don't think so. Not consciously.
So you could be doing it, but not consciously?
Anyone could,
Yeah.
sure.
You don't think that all human beings discriminate?
If you mean by discrimination, make a judgment between two people, yes. If you mean by discrimination, prefer one race over another, no.
I grew up in Alabama under the Jim Crow laws. We couldn't live in certain places like that.
Right.
But we had family. We were better off then than blacks are today when they can do and live wherever they want. Why weren't we worse off then under the Jim Crow laws than the blacks are
Because
today?
I'll tell you why.
Why did white people hold us back
I
then?
feel as though you keep trying to put me in a box of either this or that. And what I'm saying to you
But
is
you
it's-
just made a statement about white people that's not true.
Okay, what I'm saying is I don't think it's either this or that. I think it's both. First of all, the reason you grew up under Jim Crow laws is because there were white people who were racist. If you think it's all of a sudden disappeared in 50 years, then I think that you don't actually have a real grasp on how tenacious some of these beliefs and prejudices are. And the fact that the black family has suffered from many other things, which it clearly has, and I'm not disagreeing with you about that, doesn't mean that therefore there's no white racism in America.
It doesn't exist.
Okay. All right. Look, I mean, I didn't really come here to try to convince you that racism exists.
No. We're just
Right. I'm saying if you don't believe it.
No, I know it doesn't.
Okay.
I know
How do
for
you
a
know?
fact.
How do you know?
Because
So if I hear if I hear a white person make a racist remark, what am I hearing?
you just
It's not
hear,
true?
First of all, it's not a racist remark. You hear an angry person. It's all based on what they're saying and why they're saying it. You hear an angry person making a comment about someone they don't like.
But what if they make it about a race?
They're still making it about someone they don't like.
But what if they're making it about a whole race?
It's still about people that they don't like. It has nothing to do with the
It's-
color.
look-
It has everything to do with the character of the person
When you
or
grew up
people.
in the Jim Crow laws, was there racism?
No.
So you don't think that when in Nazi Germany was there anti-Semitism?
Let me say this, and then I'll get to that. I want
Okay.
to.
I think
in
you're a little bit playing with words
No,
there,
no.
but
In
okay.
reality, our battle is a spiritual battle, a warfare between good and evil. It's either good or it's evil. It's either wrong or it's right. And so whenever you become angry, it causes you to look down on your fellow man. It causes you to blame them. It causes you to judge your fellow man. But if you don't have that anger, you would never do that. And you're able to see people for whom they are, and you deal with them accordingly. But the moment you become angry, you lose that sight of that.
Look, I think that this is a definitional difference. You can call it anger if you want.
And the reason I want
when the anger manifests itself in hatred of a race, it's racism.
But there are not white people who hate a whole race of people. They hate what black people are doing. Most black people are brainwashed, dumbed down, angry, and they have been brainwashed to blame white people for their problems. So they are attacking white folks. There's a race war going on from black people toward white people because these people in their fallen state believe that white folks are their enemies, and they're not.
I can actually relate to what Jesse is trying to say here. You see, the real issue of mankind is actually sin. You see, there's a battle of good and evil. So because evil exists, evil is innate in man, right? Okay, because we are in a fallen state. However you want to say it, we are in a fallen state. Because we're in that fallen state, okay, we can easily get angry. There could be hatred, and we can now hate. We can now hate another person, or in this case, another race. You get it? So, but if we don't have, if we become born of the Father or become born again, then that hate is removed. Okay, we now have love, the love of the Father. Then everybody now loves everybody. While we have people, malicious towards another people, maybe because of tribe. In my case, in my part of the world where I'm from, it's a tribe issue where people are one tribe hates the other tribe. And sometimes in some places in Africa, you have massive genocide because one tribe actually wants to get rid of the other tribe. If there was no hatred, there won't be that animosity towards the other tribe or the other race. So one person feels is more superior than the other, or one race rather feels is more superior than the other race, and they want to get rid of the other race. So it's actually not racism, it's actually hatred. That's what he's saying, because we are in a fallen state. I hope you got what he was trying to say. Let's continue with other videos.
I don't think that they're
And
enemies
white people
either.
getting fed up with
I
that.
don't think they're their enemies either.
Right. But in the
not as a general class. But if you ask me, does racism play any part in this society? I think the evidence is pretty clear, but we're not going to agree on this one either.
Are you racist?
I hope not.
Are you?
What?
Are you?
I just answered that question. I
No,
hope not.
But hope not mean that there's a possibility you might be.
Of course there's a possibility. There's a possibility that anybody discriminates unknowingly. They've done all these studies, I don't know if you're aware of them, where they will show people subliminally, so quickly that they can't see it, a white person and a black person, and see how they react. And white people and black people react differently to different races. So when you say, are you racist? For someone to say, no, I'm not at all.
I'm not.
Not at all.
Not at one iota.
Okay, I hope that you're right about you.
I know I'm right.
Okay, then God bless you.
Yeah.
Most people can't make that
but
statement.
there's a
not
possibility
honestly.
you could be a racist.
No, you didn't ask me if I was a racist.
You say you hope. I did. I asked you if
No,
racist.
no.
You said I
right.
hope not.
If there's any part of me that acts as a racist at any time, yeah, I hope there isn't. But is there Of course, there's a possibility. Just like even though you think it's not
Jewish
true.
rabbi, you can possibly be racist.
As a Jewish rabbi, there are times, I'm sure, when I am unwittingly taking into account, without knowing it, somebody's race, color, creed, religion, so on. Do I judge every human being entirely on who they are? I try. I hope I do. But can I say I do? No, that would make me perfect.
Are there Jewish people who are racist against white people?
I don't know. There may be. It's possible.
Are there white people who are racist against Jewish people?
If by racist you mean anti-Semitic, I would say, yeah, a lot of them.
So let me restate the question. Are there Jewish people who are racist against white people?
I said, I don't know. You did say that, and I answered, I don't know. There could very possibly be, sure.
And then I asked, are there white people who are racist against Jewish people? And you seem to be yes on that for
Well,
sure.
what I would say is this. The way I read the conversation here is you have a great deal of confidence in your lack of prejudice in the world, which I think is a beautiful thing, even though I a little bit distrust it. Because you see, I have a much more skeptical view of human nature than maybe you do. I don't think there's anybody without anger, hatreds, prejudice, unwarranted discriminations, and we all struggle with it. The day you think that worries me, because I think everybody should. Maybe you are that perfect person, but I haven't met another person that doesn't have some struggle with the way they deal with and think of other human beings.
Let me add, I did have that until God took my anger away.
Okay.
And he brought me out of that fallen state.
All right.
And now I'm able to see people for who they are, so I don't struggle with that.
Good.
I see what's driving them. I realize they can't help themselves. And so I don't take it personally. I pray for the person rather than struggle with anything.
See, all I can say is at least my tradition assumes every human being has a good inclination and an evil inclination. And
Well, there is good and
the
evil.
evil inclination can never be completely conquered, and everyone struggles with it all of their lives.
Oh, that's not true.
Well, I believe
I mean,
it's true.
it's
I
not
believe
true
it's
that
true.
you don't believe that.
Right,
I'm
right,
saying
right.
It's true
Yeah.
that That's not true that you can't overcome that.
Okay.
Where you can just live a
There
peaceful life.
we have a really basic division between the way we see human beings.
Ask me real fast a question about Hitler again. You said something about Hitler.
I said we're Nazis, anti-Semites.
From what I've read that they were, let me just ask you, were Nazi white people?
Yeah.
They were white people?
Yes.
And why were they mad at the Jews?
They saw them as both superhuman and subhuman at the same time.
So the white people, which was the Nazi people, saw the Jews as
taking up, as destroying the world, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
And were they taking the world away from the white people?
They were white people too.
Who?
Jews. They weren't dark-skinned. They were the same color as the people that were persecuting them.
Alright fellas, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you want to enjoy more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can get notified actually when we have new videos. I'll see you in the next one. God bless.